Welcome to Silicon Valley Asian Business Talk.
Is Roger Chen from Center for Business Studies and Innovation of Asia Pacific, University of San Francisco. Mr. Lip-Bu Tan, we are very pleased and thank you for helping us to do this interview program. Would you please briefly introduce yourself?
Sure. So I think thank you for inviting me. I'm an executive chairman of Cadence Design and also chairman and founding managing partner of the Walden Group that include Walden International, Walden Catalyst, Celesta Capital. We manage about $5 billion of asset under management. And I did my undergrad from Nanyang Technology University in physics. Then I did my graduate school at MIT, nuclear engineering. And then I also did my MBA at USF.
Discussion topic: what I did to transform and grow Cadence.
First question relates to your great success in transforming Cadence. So could you share with us the so-called business strategies you adopted to transform and also successfully grow Cadence?
Yeah, I was asked to step in as the interim CEO in October 2008. And then I promised the board doing for 3 months. And then, as you know, I'm a very active venture capital investor.
Yeah.
And so they asked me to step in for 3 months, and then 3 months become 14 years. And so the company is in a very big crisis. Stock went down to $2.42. So I had to, first of all, approach, survivors, walk and crawl, and then before I run and sprint. So look back, couple of things I did. On the business strategy side, I changing the EDA, electronic design automation. So everything that electronic that you use, mostly using my tool and software. So I changed it to become the intelligent system design. And that basically is the increase of TAM market from 10 billion to 30 billion. That's how I expand the business. And then secondly, I also changed the business model. Used to be, when I took over, is a perpetual license. And then I changed it to a subscription model, software as service. Normal, our contract is 2.5, 3 years. So it's a really ratable business. It's a very big change. And so I'm very glad we did that. And then driving the business. And then later on, we can talk about the culture change. That's one of the big things. And then the other part, try to drive, business success. And then there's a rule of 45 that how you measure the success of the company. It basically is a revenue growth plus operating margin. When I took over, revenue growth is a single digit, low single digit, and operating margin is a loss. And so then I built it up. Of the last quarter, our revenue growth is 19%, and our operating margin is 40%. So instead of rule of 45, I'm rule of 59. And so it's a very big transformation. And Wall Street reward us, from $2.42. When I stepped down as a CEO, I become executive chairman. Our stock is like, $200+ shares. So increase the shareholder value by almost 84 times during this period. So that's something that we are proud of, this whole transformation on the business strategy, business model change, and also addressing the TAM market is an addressable target market by 3 times so that we can continue to grow.
Yeah, that's very good. Actually, later on, I will probably ask you to elaborate the cultural change and also your leadership in our later questions. Earlier, you talked about 2 major changes One is about the product change. The other one is a business model change. Would you please give us a little bit kind of a background information, the process of making decisions to go with these changes and, any learnings and mistakes or, reflections on those two major shifts that you mentioned earlier?
Yeah, first of all, I think, the very important change is that the business model change. And when you do perpetual license, the perpetual sales is only one-time sales. And in fact, when I came on board, I asking for become a CEO, I asking for weekly sales report. They said none. And I said, what happened? How do you guys manage the company? He said, everything happened in the last week of the quarter. So, you don't plan for it. And it's just very scary. How do you run the business? So I decided, stock down to almost 800 million market cap. So I told them, told my board, it's the right time to make the business model change. So it's more predictable. But it's a very risky change. When you change the revenue model to subscriptions, your revenue almost dropped by half. So some of my customer even asking me, are you bankrupting the company? And I said, no, nothing have changed, but I just don't want to do everything in the last week of the quarter. And so they said, well, in the past, your sales team jumped over the fence to sign the contract. But I told him that no, and I see you in the beginning of the quarter. And so that's a big dramatic change. The other part is, the product, when I asked the first year I took over, I was visiting almost 1,500 customers.
Wow.
And I'm still doing that a lot. And then, customers said that we complained to you about the product quality and everything else. And it's almost dropped in the ocean, no response back. So I kind of changed the culture that you need to respond in 24 hours. Whether you don't have an answer, but at least you said that, well, we look into it. So I think a couple of things changed. I decided to change the culture of innovations and always believe that the best product win. And innovation, in the past, Cadence is always buying company and then to, expand your product line. And so we decided not to do that. And we decided to organically develop internally. So right now, every year we have about 8 to 12 new products organically developed. I provide the incentive for the team to drive innovation instead of they leave the company and then build it, and the company had to acquire them back at a much higher price. So that's something I did. And then second, so I think a pipeline of new product is very important. I mentioned earlier about the quality. The product quality is very important. So I install a deal quality matrix. So the salespeople had to work with my CFO and myself to, we have templates in terms of what kind of deal we will accept. And then unless it's not meet those requirements with exception, then they come back to me with a presentation why we not to do that. So we hold the quality of the deal very diligently, and we don't just accept any low price, crazy term from the customer. So that is something that it protect the value of the products. And then thirdly is I put together this product performance quality measurement. And then I have a team that doing the quality across all the product line and then have them directly report to me. So, and I create, the multiplier for quality. And then, so beside the company performance, individual performance, I add on the quality performance multiplier. And then, so, the multiplier, if you're really damn good, is one in the multiple of 1 or 1.2. If it's really bad, can be down to 0.3. So whatever that bonus multiplied by 0.3 is quite severe. So you get people attention on it. And I told my board, the best way for me to drive the quality improvement is whoever get the lowest quality performance on the product groups, that will be my quality multiplier.
Oh.
So everybody got shake up, you don't want your CEO get the lowest multiplier 0.3. And so that helped a lot. And then, so I think that business model change, and then the, product change, and also the customer engagement are changing. So I mentioned earlier, I like to have 24, 48 hours to respond to the customer. And then I call it the speed and agility become part of our culture. And then secondly, I also emphasize not just meet the customer requirement, we have delight the customer. And, customer have to praise us. And then that is very important. And so that we work as one team, and then building that culture of delighting the customer, go extra mile for the customer, and then delight customer. That's a key for our success.
Discussion topic: how to uncover the ugly truth to improve business.
How do you deal with so-called the risks? Because you mentioned about the revenue model change are very risky, and also some customers don't understand. They had a pushback. How did you meet with those kind of issues, and how do you overcome these kind of issues, such as a risk or customer pushback, and those kind of things?
Yeah, so I meet customer very frequently, and some customer I meet almost weekly. Top customer, and then I don't like surprises, so I tell my sales team, you have to tell me the good and bad and ugly. And in fact, I asked my customer to grade our products. I still remember one of the most demanding customer in Cupertino. When I asked him that question, and he said, "Are you sure no other vendor asked that kind of request?" And I said, "I'm new. I need to know how bad is my products." He said, "Okay, the person you asked for it, we're gonna do some homework and then get back to you." He asked all his leader that using my product, grade my products. Then finally he said, "Lippo, we are ready for you. We're gonna have one-to-one meeting, so we're gonna give you the score." So I went there, and then I received the score. In my academic career, I don't have anything below, not too often, only one C, and nothing below C. And I got D and F and only one C. And it's so embarrassing. And then he was very kind. He said, "Well, Lippo, you asked for it. We give you the honest opinion." And then I thought that, you're quite stunned, look at your face. And I said, "Well, it's very humiliating." He said, "Lippo, we expect all A's and from you." So I turned around and I said, "Well, please help me to make it to all A's." So it's a journey of 13 years. I work with this top executive that drive engineering. And then, and thank God, after many years, I got 1 A and multiple B. I have 1 C and 1 D. So it's quite an improvement from this number one most important customer, the most demanding customer. I think it's very good to have 1 A. And he helped me to improve my products a lot. They give me very good feedback. And then usually monthly meeting, he gave me 3 pages of what went wrong. And I have 3 pages of how I found the issue. And then we become building a very mutual trust. And then, he had to go through bronze, silver, gold. I thought gold is the best already. He said, "No, I'm not going to use your tool until we become workhorse." What I mean workhorse is I can use your tool and go all the way to fabrication, and we do not have any single bug on it. And that is a higher standard that I work with many customers. This is the most demanding customer. So I think that is a very good culture that I build. And then I tell my sales team, if you don't tell me the bad news, or if a customer find out there's a bad news that I did not aware of, in the beginning, first few months, I have that experience. And I say, you will be in deep trouble. So right now, every person is rushing to tell me the bad news first. And 24 hours, they can call me anytime at night. And they want to be fighting to tell me the bad news. And that's how being an engineer, you want to know the bad news. So then you can really work as a team to address it. I told them that if you don't tell me the bad news, then that is your problem. Then you have to face the consequence. But if you share with me earlier, we put our head together, we make it work, and then that becomes our problem, not your problem.
Topic: How to win trust from the most difficult customers.
So could you share some reflections how to engage with such a demanding customer for so long? What are the tricks? What are the things other companies or managers or entrepreneurs need to know if they want to follow the similar approach?
Yeah, I have a culture of under-promise, over-delivering. And secondly, in front of customer, you don't have to show how smart you are. It's more important to build the trust. And if they trust you, even though you have some hiccup and then screwed up in some area, they have tolerance for you and they will help you to make it work. And so that is a principle I guide my company, I guide myself, and then it just hold ourselves accountable and don't promise things that you cannot deliver. And then that is a very important overachieving what you promise. The customer will like and also build a trust. They can count on you. And the other part, the customer, sometimes they design the vendor out. They don't even let the vendor know. But in this case, they trust me so much, give me a lot of multiple time of mistake to make it work. So they trust that I know, Lippo, you're the CEO. I can count on you. You're going to pull your team together to address that problem for us. That trust is the most important. And so when I decided to step down as a CEO, and I promote someone that I trained for 9 years to be the president, this particular customer very worried that I will walk away. And I had to promise him I'm not just dropping him as a customer. I stay on for a few more years as the executive chairman to make sure there's a smooth transition. That tell you how much trust he has with me, and he put the whole company, depend on my tool and my IP to deliver. So that is something that not overnight, over years that you build that trust, and then but don't abuse it. If you abuse it, in nanosecond they kick you out. So that trust is very important with the customer.
Discussion topic: Knowing customers and their roadmap.
You talked about the critical importance of winning customer trust. So I would imagine at the beginning it might be hard. Do you have any kind of tips for companies just like you experienced, starting with no trust or very bad reputation, how to build bit by bit the customer trust? Any kind of a tip to our audience?
Yeah, no particular tips, just basically stay humble and admit the mistake and apologize for the mistake. And then again, under promise, over delivering. And then the trust take times to build. And the moment you build, is very good for the customer to trust you through up and down. And then, but more important, you deliver what you promise, so that don't mess up their schedule or deliver. And quality is very important. And so focus on quality and focus on delivering the best solution, the best service to customer. And then that 24 hours availability, they can call on you. And even though I'm the CEO, and so there's a trust that the customer hold on you.
Yeah, actually, these are great tips. These are great advice as well. So relating to that, I think I probably already answered part of that question. when you're doing the transformation, the product, a new idea, and also you talk about the product pipeline, how much of your strategy actions, these product business model changes, were driven by understanding customer needs, anticipating their needs, working together with them, or how much of those strategies or actions were driven by kind of a responding or considering competitors' move, competitors' threats? So between these two, following customers or responding to competitor threats, what's your kind of a general take on that question to drive your strategy?
Yeah, it's very important to understanding what the customer requirement. And many times I basically look at the customer. What are their customer requirement?
Oh, wait a minute, actually, Lip-Bu, you say you look at the customer's customer.
Yes.
Oh, could you elaborate this very interesting point?
Yeah, you want to understanding what the customer requirement, and in fact, you even advise the customer what they need to do next. So that's why you need to learn a lot about their market they are in and their customer requirement. And that's why I study a lot and I'm networking a lot. And then so that that, for example, in the hyperscale guy, the Microsoft, Amazon, and Google, all their top management, I have close relationship. I know what they need. And then so that they, back to the silicon, back to the device side, and what is requirement. So we're actually educating the customer, what are the requirements, and they appreciate that. And then secondly, listen very carefully what their requirement, don't argue with them, and then suggest to them some of the changes they need to make. And then with that, it becomes tremendous value to the customer. And in fact, that this particular customer, when I told them that I'm going to step down, and he was really sad because he said, Lip-Bu, the truth come out. I will miss my monthly or bi-weekly meeting with you because you are so valuable to me about what is going on in the marketplace. Oh. I'm not just a vendor, I become a true partner. And then the other part, because of that mutual trust, they even share with me the next 5 years, their new product roadmap. And that is very important because if you know their customer roadmap, their requirement, then you can drive your engineering development to meet to meet some of this requirement that customer want. So that is a very trusted relationship. It's not just selling another piece of products to the customer. You basically are helping them to drive success in their marketplace by being their partner and then helping them to shape that. And they are so confident and trust you, they share with you their roadmap. And knowing that you keep that to yourself, nobody can then force me to tell them what is XYZ company, their next 5-year products. It's all is in my heart. And so every customer share with me their roadmap. And that's how I can meet their requirement and I help them to intercept some of this opportunity. Or because I'm also venture capital investor, so I invest a lot in the startup area, I can tell them that these are the market trend that you guys should look at it. Some of these big customers, they are so insulated. They are not so outside. So I become their outside window. They want me to tell them what is hot out there, what is exciting. Like right now, it's very hot, is generative AI. And I invest a lot in that area. So I can help them to look at what is the new workload requirement. How do you design your product to meet that requirement? And so those are the things that they treasure a lot.
Question topic: how to change culture and incentives to transform company.
And then the other part, we haven't touched on, I think I touched on a little bit, is the culture of the company. So the culture that I built, actually, I put down 5 attributes for the culture change. I put in the blackboard, I put it in all the wall. People will recognize and we practice that. Like I mentioned earlier, speed and agility, and in terms of quick response rather than sit on it. Secondly, you have to innovate. And then thirdly, we work as one team. So not in multiple silo product group and sales. They basically, complain about each other. Mm-hmm. So I used to be a basketball player at the college and volleyball player. Teamwork is very important. How the team, engineering, sales, finance, legal, we all work as one team. That's how you win championship. And so we spend quarterly offsite. We bring in coaches to help us, and then to work on that culture of togetherness. And then honesty and integrity is number one for us. So we don't do any shortcut. We're going to do what is right for the company. And everything we work on is focused on the company interest. And in fact, I changed the model, the incentive bonus to the team. In the past, when I took over, the company was in deep trouble. Everybody performing outstanding. And then how can that be when everybody performs outstanding? The company almost bankrupt. So I had to change that. I said, unless the company successful, nobody get any bonus. And the performance had to tie in with the revenue, the model, operating margin, and those two that I call it the Rule 45, and then drive those formula that basically in tie to enhance the shareholder value. And then we all work as one team to make it successful. So that's kind of my approach to the company building.
Thank you. That's a really great, actually, one follow-up question about this building collective, working together, collaborative culture. Did you face some kind of pushbacks or resistance for people to change from the old practice to the collective, collaborative culture practice? And if so, how did you kind of change that? I can see maybe incentives are one element. Any other things you did try to change that?
Absolutely. I think a couple of factors. One is, of course, the incentive. Drive behavior.
Yeah.
Like the product quality and the deal quality. You put the matrix, can be reward, can be penalty, based on the, and the incentive for driving the right behavior. And then secondly, it's also very important. I read a lot of books. So I usually use book and I give to every executive direct report to me, and we read the books together. Oh. And then we have an offsite to look about this book. What is really the few takeaway? And so some of this culture change is not just a Lippo culture. I want the team culture. So we all kind of highlight what is important and then why this book share that, and then what is it implied to us, and we learn together. And so that is, to a point, not my executive team. Now that every employee, when we have the quarterly all hands meeting, they become one thing that I need to address is every quarter I had to tell them what is the book I'm reading that I like. And it become the hottest list that all my employees asking, what is the next book that you're reading? And then how can they all buy that books and then try to learn how to be a better manager. And so in some ways, kind of a interesting culture of learning together.
Discussion topic: smart ways to deal with and surpass strong competition.
Have you ever considered or kind of look at the competition, to influence your kind of directions or your actions? Absolutely. I understand mostly it's following customer. That's a very big point from your talk so far.
Yeah, a lot of times we are our own competitors, so we have to reinvent ourselves every few years. But meanwhile, we also look at our competitors, and we do SWOT analysis in terms of where are they good at, and how can we leapfrog them. So one thing that I learned from the venture capital side, and then so we always have a deep dive in terms of like for example, one of the competitors very strong in this area, and we take a very determined approach, hire the best people in that industry and leapfrogging the technology, and then and recently we surpassed that, and then we become number one in that space, and then replace the incumbent. So I think that culture of innovation And then one of the time that I spend most of the time beside customer is recruitment. So I recruit the top talent. Some of them it also bring in professor to help me, and then to do deep dive and then try to figure a way. And the team is very familiar with me. Every quarter I do deep dive for different product group. And then so we're going to asking them how you're going to leapfrog their products. And then what is the new method to use to change the game. And so we did look at that. And we also look at the competitor. For example, right now we decided beside EDA, we move into system analysis. And we look at the incumbents in the system analysis. Then we wedge in one or two areas that we think that our computational software with our cloud native approach, we can overtake them. And so it's kind of piece by piece through acquisition, through innovation. And then we try to unseat them the next 5 years to become number one in that space. So that has been the culture of innovation. And it's not blindly. We look at the competitors. Where are they really good at? What are the unique areas that they have specialty? How can we leapfrog that? And so we don't want to just copy, and we just want to leapfrog it and then do a different method. We use some of the university faculty members to help us to do innovation on that.
That's great. Actually, even when you look at the competition, your kind of a lenses or perspective is from innovation perspective, like how to unseat their strength. I think that's very interesting rather than simply copying them. That's great.
And also one big source of input is actually from our customer.
Oh.
Customer tell us, this competitor we don't like. And these are the area that if you can address it, we will jump with you. So customer actually enable us. And because it's always good to have customers say that, well, if we can do X, Y, Z, we're going to be a customer and replacing the incumbent. And that is a very exciting, a commitment. Then my engineering team worked really hard to make it happen. If they feel there's a personal challenge to make it happen, then I provide the incentive for them to innovate and recruit the best talent that we can get in the marketplace.
Topic: How to maintain stable customer relationships in B2B.
When you talk to customers, how many key contacts do you need to engage and keep good relationship, have a trust relationship? My real question is, if you only have like one or two contact with the key customers, what if there's a turnover on the customer side and the person you have very good relationship left the company? So how do you manage that turnover of the key contacts on the customer side to maintain the institutional trust and a connection?
Very good question. And that's where I spend most of the time. So every key important customer, I look at the whole organization chart and also their board. And then most likely 7 out of the 10 of their board, I know them personally. And that's why I was ranked, if you Google it, I'm the ranked most connected person in the technology field. And so it's very hard not to know all the key people on the board. And then on the management side, you don't just depend on one point of contact, one point of failure. Usually, CEO is a given. I usually reach out to the CEO. And of course, CEO sometimes can be very busy. Like Satya at Microsoft is a very busy person, but I see him quite often. But more important is his lieutenants. And then all the different product group, and then they have different leader. And you need to know them. We call it the executive team -1, executive -2. So in the way, if there's any changes, they brief me what's going on. And then so my sales team may know 1 or 2 person, but I usually cover the whole organization, include their board. And so with that, you do a lot of study. I do a lot of research. And some of this public company, you can get their 10K, 10Q. Usually my team know I always I done my homework. So usually before I go to see the customer, I done a lot of homework reading and also prepare and know that what is this executive, what is interest level, what is caught his attention. So those are a lot of homework to be done. And then you have to done your homework before you go to see the customer. Otherwise, you're completely disconnected, and then they will throw you out the window. And so you just have to be really well prepared. What are the area of a very strong interest, and you can draw that. Then you can engage to the conversation. Then you can bring into the solution that you try to bring.
That's great. Did you decide, I'm sure you are very, very deep in this customer connection building or relationship building. How about your direct reports? So do you, also require your direct reports or even mention about a sales team to do similar things? Could you kind of briefly elaborate on that part?
Yeah, I usually, every customer asking for their organization chart from the sales team. And then you can really know which guy are doing their homework, which guy is goofing off. So if their organizations that they send to me, I can point to them 5 people already either replace or move on, and they are not even on top of it. They are in trouble with me. And so they basically, one thing they are very nervous is when they present the organization chart of the customer. They are very nervous that I know most of them, and they know I know most of them. So in that case, they really do homework, and then sometimes they delay to meet up with me until they really bulletproof to come and see me. And but meanwhile, I also don't give them a lot of time. They have to give me to me as soon as possible before my meeting, and then I can check whether they are. Then I cannot point to them who are the decision maker. You need to cultivate personal relationship because you're the sales guy. And I have too many accounts. You have one account. You make sure that you're on top of it. So they all very alert on engaging with the right people and then engaging multiple of the customer contact person who are our supporter, who are our competitor supporter. So they draw up the yellow, the blue, the red, and then so that I know whether they do their homework.
Topic: managing the risks of entering unfamiliar markets.
What's your general kind of approach or philosophy dealing with some kind of a very risky, dramatic changes in terms of products, which may potentially bring in high potential return, but it's risky, or your strategy is more on the safe side, like more conservative, incremental, but less risky?
Yeah, I think it's a good question. And when I finished my graduate school at MIT, I asked my professor to give me one piece of good advice. And it took him a few days. Then he came back to me with the advice. He said, Lippo, my parting advice for you is keep your eye open, take calculated risks. So that I've been treasured that throughout my life. And then in terms of career changes, I used to be a software engineer. I become a startup engineer, software. Then I become I was asked the startup company to be a CFO, and I have no idea how the CFO do. They sent me to USF to do the study home at midnight, at night evening class. So I did my MBA evening class. And then I was take the risk to be to become a CEO. I never been a CEO, not even turn around CEO, and then to take on Cadence. And many people predict I will fail. And then, and so I think the key part is, basically you have to do your homework. And then like, for example, Cadence, EDA, I try to expand into the system analysis. We do a lot of soul searching. What are we really good at? And come out that we are really good at computational software. And so with that, we kind of extend into the adjacent area. And with the customer help, that the system company, system analysis, their output is my input for EDA. So why don't we expand that, integrate that into it? So every approach, like recently, we're starting to move into AI machine learning applied to all our product group development. Then we also right now embark on AI machine learning to the drug discovery. So we just bought a company called OpenEye doing the computational software for drug discovery. And so we kind of expand into area that is not blindly, not related, but is adjacent to our strength so that we can apply to different discipline. So is it risky? Yeah, there's some risk, but it's completely risky that you risk the whole company. No. And we have our board, we have a strategic committee meeting, and then we brainstorm that, and we pick the right company. We look at the whole landscape and how many players are in that space. We pick the right one that we can integrate quicker, and the culture is similar to us in terms of innovation. And then we think that we can integrate the team into ours. So I think is it too risky? No. And do we have confidence to pull the trigger? Absolutely, because we've done a lot of homework and we look at the landscape before we pull the trigger.
Discussion topic: my investment rules to ensure venture success.
Let's kind of switch gear to another equally successful career track, which is venture capital and entrepreneurship. So the first general question is, how do you differentiate, kind of between very good venture opportunities and not venture good opportunity? In other words, what makes you say yes or no to certain areas?
Yeah, I think, I don't have a perfect formula that works every time. As you know, some of them successful, some of them you need a lot of work, and some of them you have to struggle, to find a home for that company. And so I think, look back, I have 130 IPO, and I have 92 trade sales, and I invest close to 450 companies. And
that's a very high success rate, in that.
Yes. But I also make mistakes. So I think a couple of formula I usually apply. One is I always like to look at what is the addressable market. It had to be big enough to take the bet. And secondly, I always like to, not just a one-person founder, I like to see whether they can form a team that can, a little bit like basketball team, that you can really win the championship and become, I call it the home run. When I say home run, it's more than 10 times return. And so the team culture is very important. So I usually, after invest, I spend a lot of time building the company culture that is unique to them. And, because they all recruit from multiple different companies. So they need to bring their own unique culture that they believe in it. So I really encourage them to really spend time to articulate and write down what is the company culture stand for. And then the next thing on the team, I like the team that basically, the leader, the CEO, willing to share their success with others. I mean that he really can find, because not everyone can do everything. So they need to find the people that can complement their strength and willing to share we call it the ownership with them. So we have a vesting option. I always go through that exercise, see how they allocate. If it's very selfish, they want to just keep everything themselves, give very little to people, I may not want to invest in him. And because you cannot build a successful company. And then thirdly, you have to look at the product. Is that differentiable? And then it's very important, nice to have and must have. Nice to have, at the difficult time like right now, people don't spend money with the nice to have.
Yes.
Buy company that can increase their increase their revenue or drive more efficiency on their operations. So you got to be must have. Some of them, they started as a nice to have, but really pushing them to think about how do you become a must have. And you become must have, whether the team have the capability to execute, to deliver the product development, whether you have the sales team to execute and then go to market. I spend a lot of time go-to-market strategy and how to find the killer app, the real solution application that, really you're pushing them to think hard and to find what is really differentiation, how sticky is that product to their customer, and then how do you quietly wedge in and create a platform, and that's where you become the huge success on that. So I think those are then of course you have to look at the capital efficient, the return, financial model, and then who are the investors you're going to bring in that can add value. So I spend a lot of time trying to find the syndicate, the investor that can truly add value. They are knowledgeable in this space to work with me together. And then a lot of big name venture firm, but you want the individual roll out the sleeve, willing to work with you and entrepreneur to make a success. So I always ask entrepreneur, venture guy, check your track record before they invest. You have to check the venture guy background and then see whether they have time, they are passionate, they want to help you and be a mentor to you. If you can't, don't get blinded, with a big name like Sequoia, or Benchmark. You look for the individual that can have the working experience to help you. So those are kind of my criteria.
That's great. Actually, these are very, very valuable wisdoms. Actually, I think you already kind of touched on this entrepreneur characteristics question, because you talk about the team players sharing. So when you look at the personal characters of these founders who are seeking your investment, anything else besides the things you mentioned that you typically pay attention to?
I usually do a lot of reference checks, and it's not the reference list they give me. That's where the network and connection that you have. So I have my way to do the checking on the personal. The more you know, it's not how great the person is. It's more try to find area that he need help. And where are the area of weakness? And then that's where you decide whether you want to back him, and is he willing to listen to you, and then to adopt, or he's very arrogant, he don't want to change. And that is very important, because 9 out of 10 business plan that I back, they change their plan from the day one to later on become successful. And so that flexibility of the entrepreneur is very important. And secondly, you got to have the right background. If you don't have the right relevant background, no matter how great you are as entrepreneur, but if it's good at consumer product, you want to ask him to do something in the AI machine learning, he's not going to be successful. So you've got to have the right background, and then also to find the team that he can recruit to come in. And then most important I look at is the honesty. I think there's a lot of entrepreneur, the more they talk, the more confident they are, and in the area that I usually double click, because sometimes they try to cover up and their weakness. And so it's very important to really back the people that are intellectually honest and not intellectually cheating. And that's very important, because if you don't, you most likely you'll make a mistake. Later on you look back, oh my God, this guy, he bragged so much. And actually that is area that he's not good at. And so something that you need to really do a lot of homework, and then understanding the entrepreneur. And then because it's like a marriage, you're going to be 10, 15 years to build the business together. If you have the wrong person, going to be a lot of heartache. Later on, you have to replace him. And sometimes it's like in Asia, it's very hard to replace the entrepreneur because they have a bigger ownership than us. And so that part, you have to do a lot of more homework. And then in US, it tends to be easier unless you are very, very strong and very demanding good products. Otherwise, the founder usually own only 10, 15%, unless you are like the Google founders. They are so good that they don't dilute too much. And otherwise, the easy to replace, the CEO. But in Asia, entrepreneur replace the investor, not investor replace the CEO.
Discussion topic: VC's view, the differences between Asia and U.S. new ventures.
Lippo, actually, you are almost like reading my mind, because my next question is exactly about the difference between kind of non-Asians and non-Asians, or startups in Asia or in Silicon Valley, because you are very active in both. You did very well in both areas. So could you elaborate? Maybe first, the difference is the difference between the because we are representing the Asia Pacific Center, so naturally Asian culture is a very important element. So how do you comment on the differences, the strength and weakness of Asian entrepreneurs versus non-Asian entrepreneurs, even in the United States?
Good question. Through my experience, I think U.S. entrepreneurs, they tend to talk a lot. They are more articulate and they are more aggressive to express their view, and also very good at cover up area that they are weak. Asian entrepreneurs tend to be more reserved and more, unless you ask for it, otherwise he's not open up. So it takes some time to really get them open up. And then, and sometimes it's also important to get to know the entrepreneur, their family. And sometimes I insist to meet their wife and then their children together. So in the way you get them to see their behavior in the family, and also the wife know that person the best, and then their strengths and weaknesses. And sometimes it's good to get to know their spouse, and then that will be good. And then the other part is Asian tend to be not very bragging, and then you just have to be really understanding what they try to say and what are they good at. And that's why a lot of doing due diligence. And then the Asia side depend on different country. Sometimes they keep different books. So you need to really know their culture, their way of operating. And then so the honesty and integrity is above all. Is more tricky in the Asian investment. And also some of the Asian successful entrepreneurs tend to be very ambitious. And US entrepreneurs tend to be more focused. Asian entrepreneurs try to do 3 or 4 things at the same time. So you need to really encourage them to be focused, one at a time, and prioritize that. And so that's where I think you need to kind of build the friendship and then build the trust. And so don't just jump in and later on you found a huge mistake and the money just disappeared. And so I think some of the VC guys learn that mistake in Asia. So I think it's just, entrepreneur from Singapore to Indonesia to India to China to Taiwan, they're all different. You need to know their culture. I happen to have operation in multiple Asian. I help starting that. So in a way for me to learn their culture so I can be more effective reading the people's more accurately. And so that part, I think it takes time to learn that.
That's great. So you talk about the kind of like the weakness or maybe strength. Asian entrepreneurs tend to be more conservative, not articulating. But do you also see some kind of advantages that Asian entrepreneurs with an Asian culture heritage or from Asia, that's their strength they should know and they should kind of really leverage and enhance in the entrepreneurship journey?
Yeah, again, back to, you need to know their culture
and
then what their comfort zone. Like if I invest a lot in India, India, they tend to be more outsourcing, like software outsourcing. They're really good at it. I back quite a few of that successfully. But if they want them to work on their own products, take the market risk, they are hesitate. So you need to know their culture difference. And so you really emphasize their strength and then de-emphasize the area they're not good at. And then add on people that can complement their strength or their weaknesses. So I think it's very important to understanding their culture, their background, and then their training so that you can make judgment call and what are the risk management. And eventually, I think venture capital investment or company building is a risk reduction program. So, from day one, you have many risks, then slowly eliminate the risk, then eventually become very successful. So I think the more you're understanding the culture, the understanding the product, the market dynamic, depending on what market they try to address, and then you can make a more wise judgment call to pick the right investment. And also after the investment, I always say 10% of the work is before investment. Then 70% of the work is day to day. for the next 10 years. And then how do you adjust, changing the model, changing the business, focus the right products, and then recruit the talent team to build it. So it's a long journey. And then it's a partnership with the entrepreneur. So make sure that you know him well, you can read his mind. Otherwise, you're going to be getting into trouble. Then most likely you guys are going to be fighting.
Topic: How I learned to be a leader.
Could you elaborate your kind of leadership approach, philosophy, as you manage the transformation and the growth at a Cadence?
Yeah, I think it's very interesting. Leadership, some people said that you're born with it. And some people that, over time, you pick it up and learn it. It's very interesting. When I started at Cadence, I asked a coach to helping us, not only helping me, helping my team on terms of team culture. And he decided, we need to do the Myers-Briggs and personality. And it's very interesting, I just looking at the team, and then I look at myself. Initially, when I do the test, I was ultra introvert.
Oh.
And I'm not a very open, very outspoken person. And after 7 years in this business, being a CEO of this company, and when we did the test again, I become ultra extrovert. So that tells me that people can change. And so you can train, and you're not born with it, whether you're an entrepreneur or leader or you're not a leader, but actually you can be both, as long as you kind of work on it. And then with the right coaching, you can be very good at that. And then secondly, when I was a CEO, I find that this job is quite lonely, and especially the public company. A lot of things you cannot share with your team when the company have some challenges. And then I find that very valuable for me is the mentorship or the accountability group that I put together. So they are successful CEO, they're successful leader, and then it's a very small, 4 or 5 people that we have agreement. They will share with me their challenges, and I can share with their challenges. And you learn a lot about the same, like for example, this pandemic period. What are the decisions you have to make in terms of bring them back to office? And then what are you decide on the bonus? And then you want to have a little bit more data to decide, or you should go to the formula that used to be practiced. Turned out to be very helpful by some of these people to share with. Some of the situation, you may not get consensus among your management team. Mm-hmm. I have one situation, I have a very heated, divided team view on this particular topic. I have 50-50. 50 said we should do this. 50 said, no, over my dead body, shouldn't do it. I decided, they all know, usually I ask for time to let me sleep overnight, but it's not actually sleeping. Actually, I'm doing a lot of work, comparing with my peer and my mentors, and then do my homework. And later on, I come back with the decision that, the team all come together and we become unified voice to make that decision. And some of them originally disagree with that. They come along. And that's very important. And so there is a kind of a team culture together to make it work. And so I think that I think is very valuable. And I also, over the time, I belong to this business council. Business Council, the U.S. Business Council, is a top 50 Fortune company CEO like Satya, Jeff Bezos, J.P. Morgan, friend of mine, Jerry Diamond, Brian, Bank of America, Delta Airlines CEO. So all these CEO, we get together 4 times a year. And in fact, this pandemic situation, there's a lot of issue about COVID situation, exposure, depression, mental health, and when is the medicine available. And so turned out to be extremely helpful. They conduct not just once a month, they conduct once every 2 weeks with the right people. Like, for example, in the COVID situation, we have Johnson & Johnson CEO, Merck CEO, CVS CEO, and hospital CEO. They all come together and then update us, or the CEO, what are the things to expect, what are the things need to be prepared. And then turned out to be extremely helpful for me in my own cadence, how to do that, how about the decision make with my HR director and our business unit, how do we implement some of that. That turned out to be a tremendous opportunity. The other part I mentioned earlier, besides mentorship, accountability, we hold each other accountable. And the other part is I found out that I'm learning from being on the job. And some CEO want to be the Superman. They always want to be right. And end up is very dangerous. And then when they fall, when they make mistake, it turned out to be very big disaster. He got fired, or she got fired. And I learned that, by showing the vulnerability. And then you don't know, and you make mistake, you screwed up, you admit you screwed up. I tell you, the team come along with you. They support you, and they want to make sure that they give you the honest feedback, and at the end you make the final decision. They basically, they don't remember how many awards I get, and I have a lot of awards, but they only remember when I screwed up. They don't know it, and then I enjoy doing that because I show the vulnerable. They come in and have fun, and I learn a lot by learning the mistake. And then my 2 kids, I learned from them, and they can't remember what are the big award I got, but they remember where I screwed up. And then and we become a very laughing, and then it's kind of fun, and then to have that relationship, And so I apply it on my team also.
That's great. That's also kind of echoes your early point, like being humble and it's honest, showing the vulnerable part. I'm curious, going back to your early story, because you said initially you got like a equally divided team, then you did some homework, try to persuade them. Could you, kind of add a little bit kind of points? How do you do the homework and eventually persuade the opposing side to go along with your decision?
Yeah, I learned a lot. I'm a big basketball fan or football sport fan. The 2 coaches that I learned a lot is, this Phil Jackson. You remember he used to coach the Chicago Bulls, Michael Jordan, and he coached the, Dennis Rodman. Then he went into Shaquille O'Neal and Kobe. And he usually give books to each player to challenge them to do something. Like Shaquille O'Neal is horrible in shooting, and he's basically challenge him to how to, shooting the so they can improve that. And I found that is very useful. And the other one is John Wooden, and that is UCLA, and then how to even help the player to tie their shoe so they don't get injured. And that turned out to be a very good lesson to apply to the business. So it's all individual. And then you just have to spend time with them to work on them. In fact, all my executive team, I have assigned a coach, different coach for each person. So you basically bring out the best of them, and then they all work with me. 3 areas that each one of them, they have to work on. And then we help them with we invest, the coach invest money to make them a better leader. And I just mentorship some of this executive, and they can be anytime be a CEO in any other places. And then, so because of that, you have vested in them. They look up to you as a mentor, and you help them to be a better leader. And then that turned out to be very rewarding for me, and also very fulfilling for them. And they appreciate a lot that I now have a coaching. Even my board, I have this buddy system. So some of the board members, they're very strong in marketing. So I match up with the corporate marketing person. And then someone very strong in finance. I have him mentoring my CFO. And so in a way, they get the real value contribution matching. And then like, for example, the CEO I trained for 9.5 years, I have 5 executives that become their mentor and accountable group for him so that he can develop, have his own team accountable for him, that he can reach out to them without coming to me. And so I think that is valuable lesson learned. And then, by the way, when I become the CEO, my HR director gave me 3 books, CEO for Dummies. So I read those 3 books, and in some way I look back, I'm not a proven CEO, and I learned a lot by working on on training, and turned out I can be a better CEO rather than a pre-idea. People don't like pre-idea CEO, and he just duplicate whatever he learned in the past. But I was so open. I still remember the first few days in the all hands meeting. I told them I have no experience running CEO of public any company, not even a public company. So I said, well, please give me advice and suggestion. So every suggestion you give, I will read and then listen to it. So for the first few weeks, I have 300 emails per day.
Wow, per day.
I promised them I read every one of them and I follow up with them. So some of them was really shocking. That I have been in this company for 25 years. If I send anything to CEOs, I drop in the ocean, never reply. And you came to my cubicle and talked to me, and then their tears dropped. And he said, well, no CEO have done that. And but you did that in a very different way. And that's why, you become, kind of people CEO, they employee CEO, they like me so much. And they feel very difficult to accept that I'm leaving, but I insist to leave. But I bring somebody else much better than me to be the next leader. And then, so I think that's kind of my approach.
Discussion topic: advices from a seasoned leader on career development.
Your advice, to young people, especially young Asian people, well, obviously we know Indian people are more successful in their corporate career. So, but there are a lot of other non-Indian Asian culture young professionals, that we can help them. So what's your advice to them to help these people to advance their career?
Yeah, a couple of advice. One is, some of the younger generation, I kind of coaching them. You have 3 meals a day, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Try to make new friends or new people, and that build your network. And network is tremendous value, important. And so work hard on that. And then secondly, whatever you are doing, try to learn as much as you can. So when I was young, I study a lot in the storage, semiconductor. Every area I have a binder, I work on it. I read all the material I can get, research report. So you're starting to learn deeply in a certain area. Then you're starting to pick 1 or 2 areas you want to specialize because you are very passionate about. And then thirdly, find some mentorships. And now you mentioned about, Indian are more successful. That's a reason. They are very networking. And Thai organization is very well organized. And then they are also very talkative. So they talk a lot. That's how they learn how to networking. So they are more successful as a CEO because they are very able to articulate their story and more than the Asian. But there are some successful Asian CEO, and I can name a few that I respect. Like Lisa Su of AMD. She's fabulous. Is a very close friend of mine. Jensen Huang from NVIDIA is very, very successful, and he's still the same Jensen I know 25 years ago. Still very engaging and really go into the technical detail. and so very hands-on. So there are some good, John Chen is another good CEO and a good friend of mine in Committee 100. We serve together. And so again, networking, find your mentorship, and then and also find your peer, hold you accountable. Like for example, I have more than 20 years now. I have a book club, and then the couple of us, we just read books and then share the book together, and we learn a lot by working together. So at the end of the day, is you want to find out what is your core value, and then what you believe in it, and then stick to your core value, and then be different, be yourself. You don't have to mirror image somebody else. And I have my own style. People have different style. Just be yourself and be confident, and use your strength to wedge in and learn. Your weakness becomes strengths, and over time you become a lot of area. You become strong. But I think that is something like, for example, you always have the constant learning. So lately I've been learning a lot, and I also invest a lot. One thing good about venture capital, you invest by learning. So right now I'm heavily investing in generative AI. There's a game changer. And the cloud infrastructure, that is big time for Cadence. I drive the cloud infrastructure. Software 2.0. Used to be you build the hardware, you build the software to make it work. Now it's the other way around. Software define the hardware. AI, machine learning to the drug discovery. The next 20, 30 years, the new drug coming up, the more personal medicine is come from machine learning with the data to create new drugs. And I'm heavily involved with that. I just joined the UCSF Executive Council. And then the other part I really enjoy is working with faculty. So I funded about 25 professor and students spin out. Some of them are very successful, and because they change the game. And so you learn a lot by working with all these entrepreneur or professor. And I like so much as a professor at Stanford. I even put some capital for him. He don't have to go to Sand Hill Road to raise money. And then all the seed funding, I just support it for them to get started and then go to market. And he's a brilliant professor, and I'm doing that. So I think all in all, just have a culture of learning, and don't just finish your school and you return the schoolwork to the professor and then you go to work. But education is just part of the training. Use a tool to learn even more.
Discussion topic: good and bad mistakes of leaders.
About the challenges or setbacks in your kind of professional career, especially when you transform the company. When we say setbacks or challenges, it could be broad internal challenges or setbacks, or as well as kind of external challenges or kind of a setbacks as you try to grow and transform Cadence.
Yeah, I think we all make mistakes, as I mentioned earlier. One is very important. If you screwed up, just admit you screwed up, even though you're CEO. And you show the vulnerability, and people expect you to make mistake. And in fact, I even tell my team, if you we usually, if of the all executive team, beginning of the year, they give me their, what should I call it, self-evaluation of the last year, and then the new area of initiative for next year. And you do that every quarterly to review their progress. And then clearly, if you put something together, I want them to be more aggressive rather than sandbagging. And so in the way that they really honestly try, and then a little bit like the marathon runner, they tell me, you have to, every time you have to stretch another 50 meters, stretch another 50 million, then you eventually finish the course. So you need to put together a kind of more aggressive goal. And then I work with them to help them to fulfill that goal. But at certain point in time, we all have failure. And then we can just admit the failure, don't have to cover up. The more you cover up, later on become a big volcano and then fire. And so it's more important to admit the mistake and then learn from the mistake and move on. So don't dwell on it. And so I always believe that, if the executive, they make a mistake, I thought as long as it's an honest mistake, I can live with it. And so as long as it's not irreversible, if it's reversible, it's fine. You can just learn from it. But don't do those irreversible ones. Then it will be very bad mistake that you maybe get fired. And so you can put the company in danger. So those are the things that I advise. And then for me, every year I have my own goal, and then try to push yourself a little bit more, and then not sandbagging that you're going to meet everything going to be achieved and overachieve, but it's have certain area you push for it, and that if you meet 80%, you're damn good, And then one of my good advisor, and then when I took over this job as a CEO, and I was so afraid of making mistake, because we are so close to bankrupt. Mm-hmm. And he gave me a very good piece of advice. He said, Lippo, if you make 75% of your decision right, you're a damn good CEO. Mm. And I took it as an advice and as encouragement. So from day on, I started to make decision, and rather than try to buy consensus. So I make some decision, besides listening to it, I make tough decision. Turned out that is a big encouragement for me, that it's okay to make mistake. As long as 75% you are correct, you're a damn good CEO. And I took that as a very good advice for me.
Discussion topic, vision, trends and opportunities in different sectors.
So what's your vision from your vintage point about kind of exciting new opportunities, and for entrepreneurs to know, especially for young entrepreneurs to know about the future? You talk about AI, generate AI, those kind of things. Could you elaborate on your vision from your perspective, the exciting innovation, exciting opportunities?
Yeah, I think it's very important to identify the big trend. Like the internet, is a big trend. And then cloud is a big trend. And so you have to identify the call center, like they call it contact center, is a big trend. And then generative AI is a big trend. In fact, in general, AI is transforming all the different vertical industry, is everywhere. So, and in fact, some of my friends, their kids, daughter or son, asking me for advice. And I said, well, if I were you, take some classes in computer science and AI, because whatever field you are in is changing. And so AI, machine learning, I think it's not replacing the brain, but it's really help a lot of industry to do better job. And then secondly, if you're in the software, right now the data is explosive, and the data is massive. Just like autonomous driving, the data is humongous. And so the data, the personalized data, how to secure that is a huge area. So to me, I call it the data flow software. The software 2.0, talk how to scale to address all this massive data to make use of it. It becomes a very big area. And then the healthcare medical is a big area. How to use that, become more personalized. All the cancer, every patient react to the medicine differently. And then how do you use that in the AI machine learning to drive some of this discovery? And even some of the, the mundane consumer product or retail, they are all using AI machine learning to drive better, the more personalized, like for example, people talk about TikTok. TikTok actually the most advanced AI machine learning, even more advanced than Google and Facebook. Used to be they are two of the best. And now TikTok is even higher than them now. And so again, model keep changing. You just need to, adopt and identify, I call it the major wave, and then you just ride with the wave. So a little bit, a good friend of mine is a good surfer. You surf only when the big wave comes, and then you ride with the wave and you make a lot of success company, but you don't try to create the wave. It won't work. So that's kind of my metaphor that, I believe that very good friend of mine, he's a good server. He said, Lippo, wait for the wave, identify the wave.
Thank you for watching.